Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going on a bit of a treasure hunt for a place that's been lost to history, the legendary land of Ophir. Now this whole story kicks off with a massive quest for gold. But what's really fascinating is how that quest ended up drawing the map for ancient globalization. We're talking about a single trade route that would literally change the course of history for empires, for people, and even for faith for the next 1,000 years.
So, it all starts with King Solomon. You've heard the stories, right? Immensely powerful, incredibly influential. And his entire kingdom, his entire legend, was basically bankrolled by this one, almost mythical source of wealth that's mentioned in the Bible. And we're not just talking about a good trading partner here. This was the absolute engine room of his entire treasury. So, get this. The very first trip to Ophir comes back with a jaw-dropping amount of gold, 420 talents. Now, I know what you're thinking. 420 talents. What on earth does that even mean today?
Well, to put that into perspective for you, that's almost 20 tons of pure gold from a single expedition. This wasn't just some successful business trip, you know. This was a strategic, national security-level infusion of cash. One shipment. That's all it took to lock in Solomon's power on the world stage and really cement that legendary status.
Okay, so for literally centuries, everyone from historians to treasure hunters has been arguing about where Ophir actually was. And that search has given us a kind of lineup of suspects, which has pretty much been narrowed down to three main contenders.
Now, when you first look at it, this is a tricky puzzle. Take Arabia. Sure, it had gold and established trade routes on land. The problem? Their big mining operations didn't really get going until centuries after Solomon. Okay, what about East Africa? Is close to the Red Sea, which makes sense, but again, their major gold empires popped up way later. So that leaves India. And India is interesting. It has an ancient gold mining history that lines up perfectly with the timeline. The only catch? Getting there meant a really long, really dangerous trip by sea.
But you know, the real key to cracking this case isn't just about where the gold was, it's about the how. It's about logistics. How in the world did Solomon get all that treasure back home?
And this, right here, this is the crucial clue. Think about it. There were already well-established camel routes connecting Israel to Arabia and Africa. They'd been there for ages. So why? Why would Solomon spend an absolute fortune building a huge, high-tech navy to go somewhere he could, theoretically, just walk to?
And when you compare the two options, Solomon's strategy becomes crystal clear. See, he wasn't just thinking like a merchant, he was thinking like an empire builder. Those land routes? Slow. They couldn't carry much. And worse, they were controlled by his competitors. A fleet of ships, on the other hand, well, that's a game changer. It means high volume, strategic control, and, this is the big one, it let him completely bypass those monopolies. The answer just had to be the sea.
And you know, the Bible itself is incredibly clear about this. The book of 1 Kings tells us they went to Ophir and brought from there gold, 420 talents, and brought it to King Solomon. It doesn't just mention the gold. It actually details the creation of this royal fleet at a very, very specific port on the Red Sea, a port chosen for one huge strategic reason.
And let's be clear, this was no simple fishing trip. We're talking about a massive, multinational, high-tech operation. The port, Ezion Geber, was the only one that gave him a straight shot to the Indian Ocean. His partner? King Hiram of Tyre, the biggest naval powerhouse in the Mediterranean. And the crew? These weren't local sailors, they were the best of the best. The goal here was to create a direct, permanent link to Asia. They were building global infrastructure.
All right, so the fleet tells us they were going somewhere far away, somewhere overseas. But how do we get more specific? Well, the answer, funnily enough, isn't in the gold. It's in the rest of the shipping manifest. We've got to look at the entire cargo list.
And what a list it is. Gold, silver, ivory, even apes and peacocks. And then there was pepper. So valuable it was called black gold. But while all of that is amazing, it's the living cargo that gives us the real clue, like a geographical fingerprint that can only point to one place. And it all comes down to one crucial item on that list: almug wood.
So you have to ask, right? How can a type of wood possibly be better evidence than 20 tons of gold? It's simple, really. You can find gold in a handful of places around the world. But this wood, it's a different story.
This almug wood, which we now know as red sandalwood, is basically an ecological unicorn. It is native only to the mountain ranges of southern India, specifically the Malabar coast in what is now Kerala. You literally cannot find it growing wild anywhere else on the planet. This is it. This is our proof positive, the smoking gun.
And knowing the destination is southern India solves the final piece of the puzzle, that 3-year round trip mentioned in the Bible. See, it wasn't about the distance taking that long. It was all about the timing. The sailors had to catch the powerful monsoon winds to get to India. Then they'd spend a year or so trading and loading up, and then they had to wait for the winds to literally change direction to blow them back home. It wasn't just a schedule. They were working with the rhythm of the planet itself.
So there you have it. All the evidence points in one direction. Ophir was on the Malabar coast of India, in modern-day Kerala, a place that has always been the global hub for the spice trade. But honestly, the quest for gold was just the beginning. The real story, the lasting legacy of this route, is so much bigger. It's a story about people, about culture, and about faith.
This path that Solomon opened up for gold became a vital artery for civilization for the next 1,000 years. Seriously, 1,000 years later, the Roman Empire is using the exact same route as a superhighway for its spice trade. Then, when Jerusalem was destroyed, that same route became an escape path for Jewish refugees. And not long after that, the Apostle Thomas follows that same well-worn path to reach those very communities and bring Christianity to India for the first time. And this is so important to grasp. We all hear about the famous Silk Road, but this sea route to India came first. It was centuries older. And not only that, it was faster and could handle way more cargo. This, right here, was the original long-distance trade route of the ancient world.
And speaking of the Romans, they became absolutely obsessed with Indian spices, especially pepper. They even called it black gold. They shipped so much silver to India to pay for it all that historians like Pliny the Elder were actually complaining it was causing an economic crisis back home. Just look at these numbers. India was draining as much silver from the Roman Empire as Arabia and China put together.
And this is really the most profound part of the story. A route created for trade becomes an escape route. After the Romans sacked Jerusalem in 70 CE, Jewish communities fled for their lives. And where did they go? They used this safe, established sea route to get to Kerala, where they created the oldest Jewish community in India. And then, following that path, the Apostle Thomas arrives, specifically seeking out those communities to share the Christian gospel. One thing led directly to the next.
You know, it's funny. We started this whole journey just trying to find a place on a map. But the real discovery, the real story, is how the search for some redwood and some spicy berries ended up changing the entire world. It proves that sometimes the smallest detail in a shipping manifest can become one of the biggest chapters in history.
And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It leaves us with this big question for our own world today. It's a powerful reminder that this interconnected global economy of ours, it isn't new. And the hunt for a single resource, whether it's ancient sandalwood or, say, modern microchips, can create pathways that last for thousands of years, shaping how people move, how ideas spread, and what we believe in ways we just can't predict.